Mormon Transitions is a production of the Open Stories Foundation. All donations are tax deductible and help to keep the podcast alive and to sustain our Mormon Transitions Facebook support community. To support the podcast and to join the support community, become a monthly donor today at mormontransitions.org. Hello and welcome to another edition and a joint edition of Mormon Transitions Podcast and Mormon Stories Podcast. I'm your host, John DeLynn. It is November 4th, 2015. If you're listening through Mormon Stories, this is going to be part 2 of an interview with Steve and Chris Holbrook. We just spent an hour and a half talking to them about their journey as Mormons and then leaving the church and then raising kids, sort of with variations within their family of who did what within the church, and how they sort of left Mormonism for probably 15 or 20 years, and then how they reconnected, in Utah County with sort of John Larson, Mormon Expression, and eventually the Utah Valley Post-Mormon Group. And so that is sort of a Mormon story style interview of their story, and it's really good. Steve and Chris are super delightful. And now we're going to be having part 2 of this interview, which is going to be sort of a new format aligned with the Mormon Transitions Project. For those of you who don't know, Mormon Transitions is slightly different from Mormon Stories, because Mormon Stories is sort of long format stories. Mormon Transitions is a new podcast that we're rolling out that tries to provide practical information for people who are transitioning away from Mormon Orthodoxy, either towards progressive liberal Mormonism or completely out of Mormonism. So we're going to be talking about identity, spirituality, community, family, how to deal in communications with others. It's going to be an extensive library of interviews and online materials. There's a blog at mormontransitions.org where we're blogging. It's a really great group of bloggers. All sorts of really cool things in the works. We've been holding retreats now. The retreats have been super successful. So we're super excited about Mormon Transitions. And this second part of the interview with the Holbrooks is going to be focused on what I consider to be one of the top 5 themes for people transitioning away from Mormon Orthodoxy, and that's community. Because I believe that we are tribal animals. We are animals that have survived and thrived, even from an evolutionary standpoint, because of the communities that we've been able to form. And for better or for worse, religion has been the main hub for much of our communities. There's been the small towns, there's been cities, there's been communities, but religion has often been sort of the axle that our communities have revolved around. And if you go back just to the founding of villages in Europe or in, Asia or Africa, or even the early colonies in the United States, you would find the Puritans settled one place, and the Episcopalians settled another place, and the Lutherans settled another place. And religion was always sort of the foundation of community. And that's certainly been a really important part of the LDS journey, is how religion has not only just been informing people's lives spiritually and doctrinally, but also to the local town, the local city. Religion and community were very interwoven. And so when we now see so many people in the United States and in the developed world leaving religions, we know that from the Pew Foundation that the fastest growing and the largest religious group are the people who no longer affiliate with any religion. We know that Europe and many parts of Asia, developed Asia, are becoming highly secular, where 80-90% of the population really doesn't attend any religious tradition. A lot of people are asking whether it's Alain de Botton or the Sunday Assembly or Oasis in the United States. There are all these groups saying, you know, even if we're atheist or agnostic, even if we're secular, maybe we're spiritual but not religious, whatever it is, we still want and need community. And so, yes, there's going to be a lot to figure out with your existential crisis, with your spirituality, with your family, with your friends, with your marriage. And we're going to cover all that stuff on Mormon Transitions. But I specifically chose community as the first main topic for Mormon Transitions because I believe and I've experienced that community remains really important for healing from sort of the trauma that can be an Orthodox religious upbringing, and then growth. So growing, positive growth and happiness and health and well-being after a transition, community can play a central part. This can be anywhere from just friends who are role models to couples or families that you get together with on a small basis, all the way to organized activities and etc. And so we brought Steve and Chris Holbrook on because they joined the Utah Valley Post-Mormon community when it was, let's just say, a couple years old, and we're going to be talking about that. And they've been an active part, along with other leaders and co-leaders and community members, growing the Utah Valley Post-Mormon community to be over 1,000 people strong, who are active. Many of them are actively engaged in community events. They have weekly coffees, meetups. I've heard about karaoke nights. I've heard about picnics. I've heard about weekly support groups that are run under the name Calm. And there's just so much cool stuff around what they're doing. And what we want to do through Mormon Spectrum, which we won't talk too much about here, but through this online directory of communities that are popping up all around the world, we want to encourage and nurture the creation and growth of progressive and post-Mormon communities throughout the world. Because just because we no longer believe in an Orthodox way, or even if we no longer affiliate with any church or religious tradition, I believe, just like secular Jews, that we will do better if we still can maintain tribal ties, community ties, a network of individuals to help us find friendship, role models, ideas, tips, tricks, play groups, youth groups, adult groups, whatever it is. I think we'll do better if we have healthy community than if we don't. And so we're going to learn about how Utah Valley Post-Mormons started, how it grew, how it became successful, what they're doing in detail, what they've done right, what they've done wrong, what they've learned. And it's going to be a template for others who want to create similar communities. Now, we've also asked the good people at the Phoenix Open Mormon community. Their community is 800, 900 strong. They have a lot of active activities. They have a rich history. We're going to bring on several people from their community. We're going to bring on Allison Udall, maybe bring Steve back, talk about Mormon Spectrum and how it's working. And we're also going to be interviewing people from other secular movements. So we're going to try and bring on the people from Oasis. We're going to try and bring on other people from other non-Mormon sort of rooted communities. And we're just going to really tease out sort of a best practice guide for community creation and nurturing. And maybe we're even going to share that in text on the Mormon Transitions website, maybe on Mormon Spectrum as well. And ultimately, maybe even publish a book where there's a really good chapter on community creation and nurturing, through the Mormon Transitions kind of brand or whatever brand we mutually choose. So with all that big introduction, Steve and Chris, welcome back to Mormon Stories / Mormon Transitions.
That was a good transition.
All right. So the way we left it, you guys sort of were away from Mormonism for a couple decades, but then you got reintroduced. So let's just talk. Let's go back a little bit and talk about the history of Utah Valley Post-Mormons, and let's lead it up to the point where you guys sort of joined in, and then we'll talk about your involvement in helping take it to the level where it is now. Does that make sense? or if you'd rather do it in a different way, just let's start having that conversation.
Okay, cool. I think where I want to start is the importance of community, especially for people who've come out of Mormonism. One of the most wonderful aspects of Mormonism is the sense of community that exists. I came from one of those all-star wards that is it. I said in the earlier podcast, it still lives in me. It is a wonderful experience, and I was raised by that community, and I loved it. And that's one of the kind of sticky features that keeps people in the church, frankly, even if they're no longer believing the doctrinal, the truth claims. People will still stay in the church because for them, it works. It produces the goods. Look at the fruit, right? And it continues to produce the goods. And even if some of the things are kind of faulty from my perspective, I recognize that it does a lot of good in people's lives. And this actually keeps people in the church when they're no longer believing because they still get something. It's like they believe the church is true, not like the truth claims, but it's true like a wheel is true. When a wheel is true, it's not wobbly. It's performing as per its design. And in the case of the church, it's performing as to its design in terms of providing an opportunity for people to serve each other, for people to be there for each other. And this is all goodness. And in that regards, I can honestly say the Mormon church is true.
Wow, awesome.
But it's that's a whole other angle. But it really is really good at that. And so one of if you do decide that you're going to leave the community, one of the first holes that shows up is community. You no longer have your people. You're no longer meeting with them on a weekly basis. But you're compelled to leave anyway. And so finding others who are like-minded, who have gone through what you've gone through, who automatically understand and recognize and respect the courage that it took for you to leave. And you can then be yourself. You can be authentic and be accepted for who you are. Those holes go away that you left in terms of community because you feel an integral part. You feel genuinely plugged in because it's really you that's there, not someone going through the motions, not because you got a calling. It's you're there for each other. And that's the essence of what I think community really is hearts connected to each other, devoted. So we're lucky as post-Mormons and as progressive Mormons in that we've experienced, for a good share of us anyway, a great sense of community. We're really lucky. John, we went in April to the Sunday Assembly in Atlanta, and I remember the post-Mormons who were in the group, and you were post-Mormon at that point, I think. You were already indicated, yeah. You joined the ranks, but we kind of looked at each other and we went, we know how to do this. Like we've been through boot camp, man. We know what community is. And the leader, I can't remember his name.
Pippa and
well, of course we remember
Sanderson.
Yeah. Pippa! that was a blast. But one thing he said is that what they're trying to do is re-engineer religion. Right? They're looking at the best parts of religion and trying to kind of like bring those best parts of community and reconstruct them in a secular way. And appeal to that innate need that we have as to be together as a tribe. So I wanted to kind of open with that community is one of the first things you're going to miss. It's one of the best things looking back that's there, and it still has some pull. So in some ways, trying to recreate that, I think, is a little bit of a mistake. In that I don't know, maybe it's possible. Maybe it's possible to have that congregational meet every week kind of thing. And some people need that and go to the UU worship ceremony, worship sessions, or to Community of Christ, or others, or Sunday Assembly, or Oasis. And I look forward to hearing more about those in your future podcasts. But with that kind of background as to why community matters, from my perspective as a post-Mormon, let me go back a little bit. In our previous story, we kind of talked about how we'd been out of the church for about 24 years by the time we actually discovered this wonderful community that was already put in place called the Utah Valley Post-Mormons. We happened to cross it, and we intersected with it in our path, and it's become kind of like a part of our life at this point. We got in and immediately had this sense of we want to help out here. This is an important group. There are so many people come out of the church that are floundering and need to know they're not alone. I'll cover this later, but it's especially so in Utah Valley. We really are the misfits, so we need it even more so. But we came into this organization. It was wonderful, and when we first came in, I wanted to meet the founder. It was a woman named Ann Nichols, and unfortunately, she wasn't at the first barbecue event. But I finally met Ann, and Ann was this kind of hip, 30-something, just a wonderful, vibrant human. And it was a delight meeting her, and it made sense that she was kind of the one who had started the Utah Valley Post-Mormons. But it was kind of a transplanted seed, a plant. It came from the Salt Lake City Post-Mormon group, which started in March of 2011. A guy named Josh Kagi is the person who started, along with Valerie, and forgetting Valerie's last name, that's horrible. Valerie Young. They got together and they said, they'd been on these online groups and discussion groups, and they said, that's all great doing online things and discussions, but we gotta go hang out at a coffee shop. And so they picked a coffee shop, and they mentioned it on Reddit and a few other kind of groups and said, hey, anybody want to join us for coffee? And it was the christening moment for the Salt Lake City Post-Mormons, Post-Mos. And Ann Nichols found out about it online and says, hey, I'm in. Even if I have to drive up to Salt Lake City, I'll go up. And so the thing that Josh and Val started got Ann engaged from Utah Valley. And about a year after Salt Lake started, Ann said, I'm kind of not all excited about driving all the time. I wish there was a group in Utah Valley. And Josh goes, come over to my laptop. And he goes, watch this. And he goes into meetup.com and created the Utah Valley Post-Mormon page, a group. And then he goes, watch this. And he goes on to Facebook and created the Utah Valley Post-Mormon Facebook page, a group. And that was in March 8th of 2012.
And can I pause you for a second? There's a couple really powerful things there. One is just that it starts with a couple people having coffee.
Yeah.
And a few other people getting together and just having fun and enjoying each other. That's how this all begins. So if you're in Charlotte, or if you're in Atlanta, or if you're in, Peru, it doesn't matter. And you're like, well, who am I? I'm just one person. Maybe I only know a couple other, post-Mormons or progressive Mormons here. Who are we to start something? And the point I want to make is that's how it starts. It just starts with people getting together and enjoying each other. And then the next step is simply creating a meetup group on meetup.com or a Facebook group, and then letting people know about it. And it's so simple, but it can be so powerful. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make that point.
No, that's exactly right. And there were moments, I talked to Josh and to Ann when they started their own, the coffee meetups. It was like, I wonder if anybody's going to come. There were like three of them. They were sitting there, and then one person would show up one week, and then a couple people started coming. And then they started having conversations about how often should we do this? Do we want to do this once a week, once a month, and they pick like once every other week, and that seemed to be the right frequency because people kind of savored their time on Sundays, right? They wanted to also be free to go live their lives. And so Anne kind of dialed that in with the few folks that were here with her starting the Utah Valley Post Mormons. We meet, they met at the Coffee Pod in Provo, and we still meet there to this day. So in 2012, March of 2012, there were like 3 Utah Valley Post Mormons. And about 3.5 years later, my estimate is we're up around 1,400. We have we've got 1,016 or so in our Facebook group, and we have over 700 in our meetup.com group, and there's some overlap. And I don't go through and do the analysis, but there are people who exist in both. They're virtually one group. It's just that Meetup, the benefit of Meetup is that you can do a Google search and find the group. Whereas...
and people can engage in it if they don't have a Facebook account, because a lot of people don't have Facebook.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a way to find the group. Anonymity or kind of your privacy is a concern, though. And so a lot of people actually have kind of pseudonym names in the Meetup group. But once they discover the Facebook group, and if they use Facebook, then they usually come on over to Facebook because, frankly, that's where online conversations occur on a daily basis multiple times.
Right.
And you get a dual combination of kind of an online community that has the benefit of we see each other. And so we know each other in real life and kind of cement in those relationships. And it works in a mutual way. What your interactions online and being there for each other during the week, you then get to see that person that Sunday and say, wow, yeah, how'd that go? How did that work out? Right, kind of thing. And so you get that, and that feeds then, being with someone in their presence feeds then a connection and a closeness that you have. And so that the next time you interact with them online, right, what's there is this person in my life that I know and that I care about. And so it's even that much more intimate in the online interaction. So Josh, I want to say a little bit more about Josh. He started this, and Josh was just this guy who put together events just like that. He goes, well, maybe we should get Grant Palmer to come talk and do a lecture at the library, in the Salt Lake City Library. And we'll invite all of the Wasatch Front Post-Mo groups. There are 3 of them, one in Ogden, one in Salt Lake City, one in Utah Valley. And everyone can just come. And so it was a bigger event. We could do these big regional events. And Josh was kind of the mastermind where he'd bring in these great talks.
Kind of like regional dances instead of stake dances, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You get it. We're familiar with this pattern, right?
Right.
And so that's kind of cool. You can do bigger things that take a little bit more production, a little bit more planning. And so Josh would mastermind that kind of thing.
And he also was taken from us because he was asked to.
Yeah, he got a position at Cambridge. He's a brilliant. He finished his doctorate and his PhD in he does the physics behind MRI machines, and he's just brilliant. He was actually recruited by Cambridge. They found what he did online and said, "We want you to come to Cambridge."
Wow, that's great.
That's amazing.
He's brilliant, and he's just so full of energy. The guy, he put this whole thing in play, and I'm here to thank him and recognize him for what he did. It's made a huge difference in people's lives. And same with Ann Nichols. Ann did this for I think 1 year and 10 months. By the time she kind of handed it off to me, she actually saw Chris and I come in and offer to help facilitate, host things, and then she goes, "Hey, would you mind being an admin, being one of our admins of the group? Each of these groups, I'll talk about this later in best practices, but you need a good set of admins, people who are motivated to do things for the group." She saw me being motivated, and she was right on the money. And I gave her a hard time. I said, "Oh, you need somebody to represent the geriatric set that's in the Utah Valley Post Mormons." I'm 57, And, you know, I'm this bald old guy, and she's this hip, kind of young, tattooed, awesome human. So at any rate, she then a couple months later, you know, announced to the group that she and her husband were going to move out of state, to the state of Washington. And she stewed over it a little bit, and you know, there were other really good admins in the group who had been doing it a lot longer than me. But I think she kind of looked at that I kind of grokked what the group was about, and that I also had this high level of devotion. I had this unending amount of energy that was devoted to it. Just was coming from somewhere. It's me being away from being alone for so long and not having a community is what it was, and all that pent up desire. But I just love the group, and I told her right then. She goes, I trust that you'll keep the group going and that you believe in it. And I said, you can count on that. I absolutely do. And so I was honored to be the lead admin at that point. And that was like.
Let me stop you there and ask you a question. And this is going to be a little bit reminiscent of what you talked about at the very beginning, and even what we talked about at the end of last episode. But I want to drive it home a little bit more. There's a lot of people out there who leave the church and are like, I'm done with the church. I'm done with Mormonism. I just want my Sundays back. I want my life back. I don't want to meet with people. I don't want to talk about this stuff. I just want to go have a happy and healthy life. Now, we don't need to go into time sort of acknowledging and validating that that's a valid path. Like, let's all agree that's a valid path.
Yeah.
But my question to you is, why did you guys specifically, you've got your kids out of the house, you've got, you know, you have money, you could travel, you have time on your hands. Why did you, and I want to hear from both Steve and Chris, why did you want to do this? Like, why? I mean, it's one level to want to connect with community again, and I want you to talk about that. And then it's a whole nother level to want to actually be kind of co-leaders. But talk about why you, as empty nesters, middle-aged, if you don't mind me using that term, why would you want to spend your time this way when you could just go biking and go read and go to movies and travel Europe? And why spend time and energy? What needs did it meet for you? So you go first, Steve, and then Chris, you add a little bit if you want.
Okay. I think it's pretty straightforward for me. It was just the empirical, what I got out of it. It was just something I would tell people when they'd come to my house. I go, guys, I'm really so thankful for you. I didn't realize how much I missed having people in my life that I could be authentic with. I live in Utah Valley, and I couldn't go out and just say what I believe to people. It would offend them. And so finding a group where I could actually have those deep, innate tribal needs that were going unmet for over 20 years. I actually had people. And you know, it's kind of selfish in a sense. It really was giving me so much. And I also had a whole lot of empathy for everyone in the room and anyone I've encountered in the Utah Valley Post-Mormons for what they've gone through. I honor them for what they've gone through. And I wanted to be there. Like, I wish there was a group like this in existence when we left 26 years ago. I mean, seriously, it would have made it a lot easier for us to kind of like get ideas from other people, how they, first of all, just to not feel alone is that's, you know, that's the biggest thing. But then to learn from each other. It's like, well, what do you do now? How do you raise your kids? You know, and what do you do when you confront people in your life who are believing Mormons who now don't want to have a thing to do with you? How do you deal with that? You know, and that would have been wonderful.
Okay, for me, the first thing people would ask me, like that question, why would you do, you know, are you getting tired of this kind of, and I'm like, how can you get tired of having friends? I think we were so long not having a group that to us, these are our friends. And I don't think we get tired of having friends. So that was the main thing. You can't get tired of being around people that you enjoy their company. And I have to say, there's something that having the background of being Mormon, and it doesn't have to just be Mormon, you could be Jewish, you could be some other religion, but to have that same upbringing and the same background, there's something about that you miss when you're in other states or places where you make groups and you don't have that commonality as being Mormon, that it really gives you that inside each other. You understand each other from where you came from. My oldest son came to coffee once and said, "Why do you and Dad hang with these post-Mormon people?" You know, and I didn't have a good answer for him. And he came back the next Sunday and said, "Mom, I got it. I need you to put another word in this for me because the word he used people can get offended by." But anyways, he basically said, "This is a group of people that have been mind
effed."
And he used another word, and yet, anyways, he got it. He got it. That it was like almost a AA group where we had this commonality where our minds were taken from us, and now we all of a sudden own them again, and we can share with each other our minds, and that really gives you something. So he really rocked that we had some commonality with these people, and then I think because of our own pain and not feeling like we're part of a family, we have a lot of empathy. And I think when you go through things, that gives you the understanding that others need that are going through the same thing. And because of our experience, we're able to be there for the others ones that are falling out of a church.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you. Thanks to you both. All right, so where do we go next, Steve?
Yeah, so there's I did a little bit of research on Mormon kind of communities, or post-Mormon and progressive Mormon communities. I want to cover a little bit of that timeline. The internet has been tremendously useful, right? I already said how easy it was for Josh to create these communities on Facebook and Meetup. It's like, boom, you've got this communication mechanism. You know who each other is, or you can do events. That's all great.
I should add, you're about to start a timeline.
Yeah.
I would guess that the very first internet communities that popped up were sort of AOL bulletin boards, Yahoo groups, and there were probably a lot of internet forums like ZLMB and View from the Foyer. So I guess that's how a lot of internet Mormonism started springing up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wasn't a part of any of that. There were, before the web, the internet existed, and there was Usenet. That were discussion groups. It was all text-based. And I'm quite positive there would be, ex-Mormon or post-Mormon people who would get into conversations, and probably apologists as well, from way back then. Yeah. So I don't have a full timeline. I by any means. So this starts in 2001. Richard Packham, who had done a lot of kind of Usenet work, he created a website, and he created the Ex-Mormon Foundation. So this is in 2001. 3 years later, in 2004, the postmormon.org organization was set up. Jeff Ricks set it up. That's when the website was formed. He had actually established a community in Cache Valley in 2002. And
they're still going strong. I think they meet every week at Ruby Tuesdays or somewhere. But yeah,
it's great. And he had the foresight, Jeff did, to realize that the need for community was a big thing. And on his postmormon.org site, he had this notion of chapters, regional chapters of postmormon.org chapters. And so there was this idea of, I can't remember how many he had, 80, something like that. And I don't know how many of them are still active. I know some of this because, Allison and I, when we were doing the research for Mormon Spectrum, on how to put together a map of in-person communities. We wanted to look at the existing communities that were out there, what worked for them, what didn't work, kind of like you were saying, a recipe book, because we wanted this to be successful. One thing that drives me, I'm going back to your thing before, is another thing that drives me is I anticipate that there's going to be a lot more post-Mormons in the world. Things are just changing. The internet rapidly is accelerating the availability of information, number one, and the availability of people telling their out stories. They're coming out. Everyone knows someone. If you're in the church, you've got a friend, you've got a family member who's come out and admitted that they no longer believe. And there's a network effect with that kind of thing. It's just like the gay movement, frankly. If people can actually say authentically who they are, they will. And if they feel enough safety to do that. So all of these efforts kind of have helped pave the way for something like Utah Valley Post-Mormons to come into existence. Of course, in 2005, John, you started Mormon Stories, and what a huge heritage and what a huge difference you've made. I really, truly believe John Larson when he stated that aside from Joseph Smith, there's no human on the planet that's ever lived that has showed more people the way out. I know that wasn't your intention, but when the information's made available, that is one of the side effects. And just to put things in context, in 2006, Facebook, which was brewing in kind of the college arena, was opened up to the public. And so the Facebook phenomenon, which is a part of a lot of people's daily lives these days, just started in 2006. It's not that long ago. Around then, so a year later, Chad Spute and Diane Ormond actually put together what was called the Community After Leaving Mormonism, with the acronym CALM, C-A-L-M. And so they started two groups, one in Davis County and one in Utah County. And John Larson was up in Davis County at the time and actually helped facilitate the early days of the Community After Leaving Mormonism. It's really interesting that name has lived on, in that even though there aren't really many of those groups that meet as much, but we still call our support meetings the CALM meeting, and it has some great heritage. 2009, the Mormon Expression podcast started broadcasting. John and Zilpha Larson. Also in 2009, the Ex-Mormon subreddit started, and talk about a phenomenal success. They've got over 24,500 members in that group. I think that's the single largest gathering of non-Orthodox Mormons. And then, as I said earlier, in 2011, the Salt Lake City Post-Mos were created. Now, this was independent. This wasn't a part of the Jeff Ricks organization, postmormon.org. It wasn't a part of CALM that Diane and Chad had started. It was something completely independent. And then off of that was two offshoots, one in Ogden and one in Utah Valley, like I explained earlier. I think. Okay, so then this is critical. In 2011, I think I got that date right, John. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep, it's February 2011.
Yeah, you started the Mormon Stories support communities, which were, they sprung up all over the place. I think you had over 100 that you'd put together, and a lot of those have come over to the Mormon Spectrum set of communities that Allison and I gathered together, and we'll talk about that in a future podcast. And I don't know about the date here. The Phoenix Open.
They were originally a Mormon Stories community. They ended up changing their name when I requested that people take Mormon Stories off of the name, and that has its own history. But they were started by me too.
Okay, gotcha. So that was around the 2011 time, and then Utah Valley Post-Mormons started basically the next year. So these are all relatively new. But I think it's like the old adage, necessity is the mother of invention, right? They're needed. It's simply a matter of they're needed, and that's why they're coming into existence. I wanted to say one thing. A lot of people who find out, we live in Utah, or let alone Utah, we live in Utah Valley. They go, "Oh my word, I would never."
They apologize.
I would
for
never
us.
be
I'm
able
so sorry.
to, oh,
I'm
how
so sorry
can
live
you,
there.
kind of thing. And it's like, we love it. We love it here. We love this valley. It's our home. And frankly, along that Wasatch Front, there's no better place for a post-Mormon because there's so many Mormons here. Guess what? There's a higher number of post-Mormons because of that. And so it drives more people, and just in terms of numbers, instead of like in Virginia, for instance, there just aren't that many Mormons to begin with. And so trying to start a post-Mormon group kind of out in the, what did we used to call it? The mission fields? Yeah. Sorry, I'm losing some of the lingo. It's been too long. I think they're up against slightly different issues compared to where there are big populations of Mormons like Utah Valley. But that also is its necessities and mother invention again. That's why, you're highlighting the Utah Valley Post-Mormons like it's some template to follow. If anything, it's just a group that really, 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 really needs community. And that drives a lot of what we do. So at any rate, that's kind of how we got here. I don't know where you want to go next.
Yeah, let's jump into we've talked about why community matters, right? We've covered, what's on our outline is as 7, right? We've got that pretty covered.
Yeah, I think so.
So we can jump to sort of the principles for underlying a community. So we can kind of jump to section 8 if you want.
Yeah, okay, let's do that. So kind of, as I said earlier, the need for community is big. We've come from, the perfect template of how to do communities, the Mormon Church. But one of the first things that's really needed in a post-Mormon or a transitioning Mormon community is a safe place to land, right? You've just emerged. You're kind of scared out of your gourd. You don't know what's ahead of you. And you're afraid that you're going to lose relationships. That's all on the table. That's all at stake. And you've been willing to take steps anyway. And so to me, a group like the Utah Valley Post-Mormons, the highest priority is providing a safe place for those people to land. And what does it actually mean to be safe? What does that entail? One thing is the notion of privacy. They're scared poopalus that someone's going to find out that they no longer believe. And sometimes they're still kind of flying under the radar. A lot of times people come to our group, they're still going to church, they don't know what to do, but they're kind of checking us out because they've had all the tales spun about the horrible ex-Mormon, dark, loathsome people out there who no longer believe, who obviously left just to sin, or they were lazy, or Satan somehow has a hold of them. And so all of those images are dancing around in their heads when they first come out. And so getting a first impression of the group is really, really important. And so having events that are safe for new people just coming out is really important. There are events that deal with being a social group and having fun, and sometimes alcohol's involved. And that's great for kind of gelling a community who are a lot of friends. But if you're new coming out, there's alcohol here? What? Right? And it's just something that, we've grown to see that there's a sensitivity around that. So they need to know, though, that you're going to not go, that no one's going to find out in their life that are believing members that they're now attending these post-Mormon or transitioning Mormon things. They don't want to know about it. They're worried about their family Could be their parents, their siblings, their extended family. In some cases, especially along the Wasatch Front and in the Mormon corridor, jobs where you have Mormon bosses and Mormon coworkers. You're worried that you're suddenly going to be not picked for a promotion or what have you, and they're just paranoid that it's going to affect their career if anyone finds out. Their friends, their neighbors. In the case of Utah Valley, Brigham Young University is right in our midst, and there are a number of people, students, who find our group, and they really need to be reassured. It's one of the first things they're all concerned about is this safe? Is anyone else going to find out about this? So we're really careful in two ways there. We have, as I mentioned, events that cater more to, they're safer kinds of events.
What's a safer event?
Well, not a party where there's alcohol.
Okay, right.
A safer event is meeting for coffee, or we've talked about this, our calm support meetings. We have those, you mentioned they're weekly, they're actually semi-monthly. We do them the first Thursday and the first Thursday and the third Tuesday of each month. So those are really good things. There's nothing, the worst they're going to hear is people maybe bad-mouthing the church. And sometimes you can't help. There's no stopping that. People will hear something and they'll say harsh things about the church. Sometimes they're still angry and venting. And so sometimes they'll just have to deal with that as they come out. The other thing about being safe is, who do you let in the group? Because whoever you let in the group knows who else is in the group, right? And so there's a vetting process of, like, if you're going to let people into the secret group where no one else can see what goes on inside the walls, you got to kind of trust these people you're bringing in. And so we kind of look at when someone comes into the group. In Facebook, actually, we have a 2-level process where anyone in the group can add anyone else, their friends in the group. Facebook's rules for a secret group, you have to be a friend. You have to be inside of a group and invite someone who is a friend into the group. And then our second level is an admin has to approve each of those. We used to just let people add people in directly, and we were worried that there were moles coming in. And so we do a little more vetting now. And
now we need to recognize the admins.
Yeah. Oh, I'm definitely going to recognize the admins. That's coming up. I will list all of the admins out. I'd be lost without them. And well, Kristen is one of the ones is the admin who's in charge of vetting. And so what she does is she kind of looks at, well, who are their Facebook friends? Are these people we know? Are they a part of other groups? Sometimes if someone's got John DeLynn,
Jeremy Runnels, John Larson,
Kate Kelly, there's the classic list that everyone wants to be friends with. And it's like, you guys don't have time to vet everyone. And so just because they were accepted as a friend of one of these luminaries doesn't necessarily mean that a lot of vetting's gone on. But if they're friends with kind of lesser known people, you start to trust that network. And so I think it's really important that people across the Facebook community and meetup communities are a little careful about who they let in, because we build on top of that. We assume that if you're really friends with this person, we don't have time to go and like PM you and say, hey, is this person real? Kind of thing. That would take forever. So anyway, it's not perfect. It's not foolproof, but it's really important to do vetting. So I want to talk a little bit about the Facebook privacy levels. The secret, there are 3 privacy levels: public, closed, and secret, if you're going the Facebook route. And secret is the most private. Secret and closed are both kind of similar in that no one outside of the group can see what is being posted in the group, what comments are put against those posts, or what likes or anything like that. None of that shows up in a TBM's timeline, for instance, their feed. only people who are in the group will have those things fold into their feed. But the difference between a closed Facebook group and a secret Facebook group is how visible the group is to the outside world. In terms of just knowing that the group exists. Closed Facebook groups, you can search for them and find them. And you can see who the members are, who's inside of the group.
So if I join a closed Facebook group, my believing parents will likely see that. And I should know that before I join the group.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know this, and it's a bit of a gotcha because their parents are getting now these on the right-hand margin in Facebook, these little, hey, you ought to consider joining this group. And it's like, what's this? Sally joined the Utah Valley Post-Mormons? Sally? Honey, come here. Sally joined the Post-Mormons, right? And all hell breaks out, right?
Right.
And so really secret is the best way to go. And people really need to know that closed, even though no one can see what's going on inside, they see who's in it and they know it exists, and they're invited to go join these groups. The downside of secret groups, though, there is a downside, is even though they're not known to people outside the group, sometimes they need to be known. People outside the group, people who need the group. Right? And so that's why other mechanisms to getting your group, if you do the secret group route, you need other ways of gaining awareness of who your group is. And one way is, the way Utah Valley Post-Mormons has done it, is we have a meetup, a mirror group on meetup.com. And so that's kind of our on-ramp, if you will. There are other groups in the Mormon Spectrum directory who have public Facebook groups or closed Facebook groups that are kind of an on-ramp, but the real good stuff goes on in a secret group. And you kind of learn as you go into a public group, an on-ramp group, or a closed group, that the existence of a secret Facebook group, and then you get invited in once you know all the secret passwords and handshakes and stuff. Kidding.
Yeah, that's important, and these groups are really important. So,
yep.
And there's hundreds of them, so, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually in the Mormon Spectrum map. We've got over 140 now.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're talking Sweden, UK, Germany, all over the United States, Canada,
New Zealand, Australia.
Yep.
They just started representing. So yeah. Actually, Saudi Arabia or United Arab Emirates is in. Amazing. I didn't even know there were Mormons there.
Yeah, expatriates. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So that realm of safety, there's safety around privacy, right? Then there's the safety around just feeling welcome and accepted. If joining any new group is hard, you're not sure. I didn't stew a lot. When we found out there was this barbecue, we went to it. It was like no question. But some people might go, I'm not sure if I'll get along with them. I'm not really, maybe, introverts have a hard time or what have you. And so kind of having events where there are admins and people in the room who are aware that there's somebody walking into the coffee shop. They're kind of looking around, wondering, right? That wondering look. And they greet them with a smile, right? And just, not that you have to be Walmart greeters or anything like that, but just to be aware of it. And then to really be inquisitive, help them tell their story. How'd you find us? What's going on? What's going on in your life? Kind of thing, and just being there for each other. So providing for a way for them to introduce themselves, a safe way for them to introduce themselves is important, either if that's in person or online. I talked earlier about the mutual benefit of being online and in person at the same time. And then they'll as soon as they get, and it doesn't take them very long to get past this, as soon as they experience that being understood and being grokked and being cared for, it feels wonderful. And right away it's like moth to a flame. No, that's not a good analogy. It's more like something to honey, right? It's just they want to come back. It feels so good. Wow, I could actually be myself, and these people get me, you know. And so I think providing as many of those experiences for new people is really, really important.
Which you didn't bring up, though. We do have people who are either coming out of the closet as gay or trans, people who maybe are having sex,
gender issues, yeah.
Yeah, and they actually feel welcomed because we are okay wherever you're at. And even if you're still in the church, you are welcomed. It's your journey. You're accepted as who you are. It's not like we're saying you have to be like us. You can be whatever you be.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
But to kind of exist with no pretense and no facades, when they've come from, you know, maybe they've stopped believing for a while and yet they still attend. They can't let their real thoughts out, and so it's so empowering when they actually can self-express and then be accepted for who they are, as Chris said.
Right.
The other thing that makes a safe stepping stone for people coming out is access to resources. Sometimes what people really need is professional counseling. You know this more than anyone else. But finding like-minded people, you get to find out what's worked for them. And so there's a wealth of knowledge in a post-Mormon, progressive Mormon community about, well, how did you figure this out? What were your steps? What did you do next? What about, now I don't believe the Mormon church, but I'm not sure about the Bible and Jesus, and what do I do there? And so we have people that are still believe, are still Christians in the group, and we have kind of an open, we don't condone atheism over Christianity or anything like that. We just allow people to be whatever they are, and we try to get people to own their things too. We don't, if people are trying to convert others, like if they're, kind of evangelical types who come in and want to convert the atheists in the group, it's not really the place for that.
Right.
And by the same token, it's not right. It's not the right place for atheists to try to convert the Christians in the group, right? So we're there really to support each other. And I kind of alluded to this. It's like what is safe, but what's not safe. And I kind of mentioned it before that the worst thing is for the stereotypical ex-Mormon experience to be one of the first experiences that they have. So that typically happens when alcohol's around. And, I want to say a little something about this. One of the first things you are greeted with when you leave the church is, what's your own morality? The church used to give you, you kind of had training wheels on, if you will. And one of the first things that happens is like, wow, I just took the training wheels off and I'm not really sure. I mean, alcohol has always been wrong and forbidden, and maybe it wasn't. Gee, Joseph drank wine and beer, and what? Maybe it's okay if I do, but I'm going to become an alcoholic if I try it, kind of thing. And so taking the training wheels off and kind of experiencing, often for the first time in these people's lives, a sense of free agency. Mm-hmm. That it really is your life, and you get to make decisions, and you get to suffer the consequences directly. Mm-hmm. So I think that that sense of free agency is wonderful. It's freeing, but at the same time, people do make mistakes, and they don't know how to kind of balance things, do things in moderation. In some ways, like people in their 30s who've never drank before, suddenly it's college days, right? for them. And yeah.
They learn quickly.
But they learn. They learn sometimes the hard way. Mm-hmm. And so this applies to not just alcohol, but to drugs, sexual exploration. All of that kind of is open, and people do explore. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. And so what we've done in our group is just make as many people aware who are kind of further down the road in their explorations, to be sensitive to those who are still first coming out, don't go hit on somebody who's married
Mm-hmm.
if they just are coming out, kind of thing. That's I can't condone a lifestyle. I know my own lifestyle. I like the safety of our marriage and the trust that we've developed, and but I recognize that other people kind of choose to explore other avenues. Um, One of the things that we do to make events safe is we label them if alcohol will be at the event or not.
Right.
Actually, we require that. This is a part of our policies, group policies, that any event needs to say, will alcohol be available, yes or no? And if it's yes, sometimes you can say just wine and beer. This is not a get drunk thing. This is more of a kind of casual social drinking. And that way, no one's just surprised. If someone goes to an event and they had no idea there was going to be alcohol there, they won't be surprised.
They also can put a time period where kids maybe are allowed to be there, like to 9 o'clock, and that way parents with kids can go home and the adults can have an adult party.
Yeah, that's another label that we require is our kids allowed. Now, the Phoenix Open Mormons, you'll hear about them when you interview them. They have a much more elaborate system, kind of based on the MPAA movie rating system, which is kind of fun, right? PG, PG-13, R. I always wanted to know if they have NC-17 events, but
Where's the G?
yeah, there's probably a G. There's a GOG, gee whiz.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
so that was kind of the safety thing, right? You got to make it a safe stepping stone.
So all that's really important. So you try and watch out for privacy. You try and make people feel welcome and affirmed. You try and create an environment where we're as tolerant and as affirming as we can be for diversity. We try and make things safe. We try and give labels that let people know what type of event they're coming to so they can know beforehand what's going on and choose it with kind of full awareness. And I think we'll probably talk about this with Phoenix, but I think you just kind of want to kind of not be a jerk and kind of be respectful and treat people like you would. I think the business sort of, I've worked in the professional environment. You don't go around grabbing people or, using substances to the point of embarrassing yourself. You just kind of, there's a level of professionality that you hold when you're in a workplace, hopefully. And I think that can be a decent model for how to engage in these communities. Just generally treat people respectfully and professionally.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a good model.
Yeah. Okay, good. So that's sort of a foundation of safety and comfort. What's next?
Best practice.
So I've got a list of best practices, kind of what helps a group grow and actually flourish. And I'm kind of looking at my own experience here, and I totally recognize that we're biased because we have a huge need pent up in Utah Valley. So some of these things won't necessarily apply to everyone, but I think that they may as well. So try them on. If you're starting a group, see if these things will work for you. So it's absolutely vital that you have good leadership, right? You got to have a core of people who are dedicated to keeping the group operational. And there are lots of different aspects of that. Utah Valley Post-Mormons, we currently have 6 admins. I know Salt Lake City Post-Mos, they had at some point 16, but not all of them were active. We're all pretty active, the 6 admins in Utah Valley Post-Mormons. We spread the work across all of our shoulders pretty evenly. Kristen is one I already mentioned, and she's been in the group the longest. Jared is another, and then Sarah, Matt, Molly, and myself. So that's the 6 Utah Valley Post-Mormon admins. And I can't thank these people enough. Just like me, they have this dedication and love for the group. They just want to give back. It has made such a difference in their lives that they absolutely are dedicated to this thing being as welcoming and loving for the community as possible. And it's an honor to know these people and call them my friends.
It's hard to find good admins, isn't it? Because a lot of people would want to enjoy an event, but they don't necessarily want to do the work. Right?
Yeah. And I have my moments where it's like, I don't want to do another event. I just want to go to them. But, and so people can burn out. You can get tired of it and really want to have more of a, in the mission field, we used to have the companions. There'd be the bishop and then the second counselor in terms of making decisions, what to do on the day. And it's like when you weren't bishop, you weren't second counselor. You were more like the inactive member that says, I don't know. I don't care. You're the bishop. You decide, kind of thing. Sorry for flashing back to my mission. So to keep the group growing and going, there's, events are kind of the real lifeblood, keeping things on the calendar. It really makes a difference. You've mentioned that, we have, on an average week, we have 3 events going on, 2 to 3 events going on every week.
Where's your calendar?
Calendar is on Facebook.
Okay.
Or
you create events in the group, Facebook events in the group.
Yeah, and then we mirror them over to Meetup. So that people who aren't on Facebook, they'll see all of the official events from Utah Valley Post-Mormon.
Okay, got it.
Sometimes we forget to create the event. We do it on Facebook and forget to do it on Meetup, right? We're human. So I already mentioned the kind of processing new members. And in Utah Valley, that's like 10 to 20 a week. That's how many people we keep adding.
The field is white and ready to harvest.
It is. Thank you, essays.
And CES letter and podcasts and
Reddit. Oh my gosh, there's so many people. They've come across podcasts
and apostles who give talks.
Yes.
Elder Ballard, thank you, Elder Ballard.
It's the lipstick man. Yeah.
Thanks, President Uchtdorf,
for turning on us.
No, I mean I don't mean to joke about it, but I mean it's true, and it's not just Mormonism. Every major world religion is seeing a decline in the developed world. Almost every major world religion. It's just society's moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you got to process new members.
And vet them. We already covered how important that is. But then keep events going. And so that means posting the events and in some cases organizing the events. Weekly coffee just happens. Nobody has to do anything.
And we're going to talk about the types of events you guys hold in a bit. So we'll hold off on that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. But there is some of that. When you first start up an event at a public venue, you need to kind of work with the owners. It's like you're going to be invading their space with a bunch of post-Mormons, and they need to kind of understand, who's this group? What are you about? And have a good relationship.
You mean like the coffee shop owner kind of thing?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, Ann Nichols was clear to do that with the Coffee Pod in Provo. And there's a group that meets at the Harmons in Draper. And, they got kicked out of Cabela's. There was some Mormon manager on Sundays. It's like, what are you doing here drinking coffee in my place? Well, you have coffee. Yeah, but we don't want you here anymore, kind of thing. And
they wanted money, I think.
Yeah, they were trying to get them to pay money. Yeah. And so we're really good in the Coffee Pod to make sure that we're bringing business. We're not just there occupying space. We actually honor the business owners, and it's give to get kind of relationship. We have a good flow of understanding, and they've been for us. They've had our back in a couple of cases, which has been great. And then the other thing that you do as admins, and this is true with online groups as well, is you moderate online discussions and at in-person events. You're going to be the go-to person. Sometimes things will get out of hand. People get irate at each other. Sometimes harassment occurs, and you as admins hear those stories, and you're brought in to kind of like arbitrate at times, and or you need to close down an online conversation that's just not doing the community any good, that kind of thing. But as I said, people can burn out, and so you have to really allow for admins. They're doing it of their own volition, and honor that volition. When it's time for them to go, when they can't afford it anymore with their career or what have you, let them move on, and then it's an opportunity for somebody else to kind of rotate in. What do we look for in admins? What qualities? And number one is love for the group and its purpose. They understand it, they get it, and they're devoted to that. And they know the group. They go to events, right? So they're there, showing up, taking time out of their day. It matters to them, and if it matters to them, a good chance they'll be a great admin. They should also be kind of natural leaders and have a willingness to help. And they bring fresh ideas, and if they can bring fresh ideas into the group, that's just fantastic, right? Our group has grown a lot in terms of what we offer, just because we've got this open door policy of like, I don't know, what do you guys want to do? What are the needs that aren't being met? How do we meet those needs? And I'll get into that a little bit. There are some needs that we still are struggling with in meeting. One thing that we've discovered is that you can have people who are motivated to help out. People often come up at meetings. They'll come up to Chris and me and they'll say, what can we, I just wish I could help. What can I do to help? Kind of thing. And it's great. We recognize right away that they've come from a Mormon background and they want to have an assignment. And, we'll joke with them. It's like, we don't do callings. You call yourself. So if you've got something that you want to do, I don't know, we'll help you with it. If you've got an idea for a new event, hey, we'll put you in charge of the event. So it's kind of like, you better be careful when you say you want to volunteer to help. It's like, well, what do you want to do? And we've actually had some great expansions in our program that we offer. So our book club was created because Lydia said, hey, wouldn't it be kind of cool to have a book club? I said, it would be. Why don't you be in charge of it?
She actually saw a need to grow and learn. And because she was over the, angry phase, she wanted to expand her mind to other things. And a book club does that. And so instead of people coming complaining about something, you come and learn, something new from the books you read.
Yeah. So we have, so Shauna Lee is the person who facilitates, she and her husband Eric, when he's able to come, are the discussion facilitators for our twice monthly calm meetings. And Brooke Swallow is the one who has arranged to get facilities at UVU. I'll talk about the need for facilities in a little bit, but these are just examples of what we call event coordinators. We've kind of given them a label, and they're people with some responsibility in our group.
Can we quickly just go back to the qualities that you look for in leaders?
Yeah.
I just want to float one idea past you. It's around the trait of drama. And there's some people who love drama, they create drama, they like to foment drama, to fester it, to spread it. And it's not, it's just a personality type. It's no one's fault. But there's a certain type that almost seems to be kind of like a drama magnet. And then there's other people whose disposition is to diffuse drama, to de-escalate, to be a peacemaker, to just sort of keep it low, to not get angry, to not get emotionally activated. And they're able to just sort of be that calm peacemaker type that just sort of, it's almost like a drama repellent. And I would say being the latter is a really great leadership trait. And tell me if that's something that you would agree.
Yeah, I think so. I think it does help because that's what's needed to be brought into some of these situations. You need somebody who can help mitigate drama that's going on, and you see it online. The same kind of thing happens in person, and so yeah. But at the same time, these are all humans, and they can, their button can be pushed, and that's cool. You just updated the document. I love it.
I don't mean to impose that, but it's just something I've learned.
Yeah,
and we're all going to have bad days. None of us are Spock.
yeah.
But there are people who are better than others at just keeping things low key.
Yep.
And I think drama can destroy a group.
It can, and it can actually burn out admins. There are a couple admins that we've gone, we've had our Flashpoint drama moments in Utah Valley Post Mormons, and we kind of mark time by them. It's like, oh yeah, that was the pre such and such era, or this was after the such and such episode, right, kind of thing. And we all kind of roll our eyes a little bit when there's the next drama flash pans up, and you kind of go, oh no, this is it, because it takes a lot of energy. It really does to kind of calm the waves like that, exactly like what you said.
Anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there. Okay, so back to event coordinators.
Yeah. So event coordinators, we kind of deem people event coordinators for some of our long-running events, and then we've deemed kind of event coordinators for people who've come up with their own ideas for events. So I mentioned the book club with Lydia. There's also been play dates, right, where caretakers, either mothers or fathers who are at home, are kind of stuck at home and need a little bit of adult interaction at the same time having their kids play with each other is just great in terms of socializing. So they'll go hang out at a park, or they'll go to some, in the summertime, those little splashy fountain places. They'll go hang out there. But Whitney was one of the original ones that came up with that idea, and so I was kind of flagging her. But there have been others who, it's just an organic thing that just happens. You get a group of like-minded people together, they like to hang out. And caretakers who are kind of lonely during the day love that kind of thing. So they do it, it's like on a every other week basis, but it's on an as-needed basis. It just kind of shows up. It's like, hey, I'm going to do play date over at this park. Anybody want to join me?
I was going to say that it's really important to empower the people and tell them that they have a say. This isn't just one or two people running a group. It is all of us, and everybody needs to be a part.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Another new idea was around teens. I kind of intimated about this. A woman, Sasha, who has teens, came into our group, and she's been out of the church for a long time, but she's her daughter, son, I'm trying to remember, she has kids, they're teenagers, and she's just worried sick about them getting with the wrong crowd. And so she's just wonderful. She said, I think we need to do coffee. This coffee's great that we do on a weekly basis, but we need one that's designated just for the teens and young adults. And I said, that sounds fantastic, Sasha. Why don't you do something with that? And she goes, well, how do I do that, right? And so, there's an opportunity to mentor someone on, show them ropes on how you create an event. And I helped her with that, and then she kind of picked, a different coffee location, and they do that on a weekly basis. Starbucks over by University Mall, exactly. We also deemed people as event coordinators who have often opened their homes. I'll talk about the need for facilities in a little bit, but people have been very generous with making space available in their home for get-togethers or parties. So I wanted to recognize Jimmy and Molly, Corey and Kathy, Ron and Jill, and recently Jared and Lynette in our group, who have just stepped up and have been extremely gracious opening their doors to the group. And then as I mentioned, admins kind of help mentor these event coordinators, and frankly, it's a pool of future admins. As people burn out in our admin group, and some people, we've had a couple, and we then talk as admins and go, okay, we kind of look in the pool of people that have been helping out, and let's make one of them an admin. There's no hard and fast rule here. Each group can kind of come up with, this is just how it's gone in our group. It's kind of grown organically like this. There were people who were, suggesting we needed to have elections and, nominations and all this other kind of stuff. And I suppose you could go that route, but it seems to be functioning where people, it's volunteer. And so people, we don't ever force someone to be an admin. We ask them, and if they want to, and if they want to stop being it, they stop being it. It's
they don't really get paid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I want to make a quick side comment. When people come up and say they want to know what to do, and we say there's no callings, and some people have nicknamed, and this, I hate bringing this up, but they've kind of said I'm like the bishop, and it's actually a button for me, because it's like I don't want to mimic anything like that to that degree. I'm not an ecclesiastical. It's their life. I'm just here supporting the group. But I get where they're coming from. They're used to having someone that they look up to. It's like I loved it when Anne was it, because it's like, what do you call her? Relief Society president? It's just it's just kind of silly. We come from the nomenclature. I just don't. I want to be like Teflon about that kind of stuff. I just gives me the heebie creepies. Is that how you say that? I can't remember.
Heebie-jeebies.
Heebie-jeebies, thanks. It's a little off. Heebie-creepies gave me the heebie-jeebies. So another best practice, consistency. This is what makes the group a group, and has it kind of live on. There's something about the group that is consistent. So a consistent pulse, and most of that is events. Sense that the group is vibrant and it's not going to go away, right? It's something they can count on. That's nice. Now there are some groups that will go away. I don't want, if there are groups listening, they're kind of teetering, they aren't quite getting the right numbers or things like that, and they're just going to give up. Groups can go away. And the need still lives on, so they at least hopefully can find another group, maybe have to drive a little further. Policies, group policies help offer consistency in the group. So these are kind of the rules of behavior. We actually have just two major kind of policies about behavior. One is no illegal substances and no harassment of any kind will be tolerated.
So no marijuana.
Yeah. Nothing in official Utah Valley Post-Mormon groups. No, the illegal substances aren't allowed. There was marijuana that was showing up at some events, and we established this policy, and so we don't have marijuana at our events anymore.
One day it'll be legal.
Yeah, but if you live in Colorado or Oregon or Washington, that's something you'd have to decide, and you may want to have, in addition to alcohol allowed, is pot going to be there, right, kind of thing. Then the other one is that we don't, if people are constantly strident, kind of attacking other characters, and it's a repeat kind of characteristic, we will get in. If that happens enough, if anybody does harassment or anything like that, and there are enough people coming to us with stories, we will ban people. We'll kick people out of the group.
What do you do when everybody says, "Oh, you're excommunicating people just like the church"? How do you respond? No, that's a fair concern that people have. It's like, who made us the authority? And we're not an authority, but we do care for. We kind of balance it out with the safety of the group. It comes back to that safety factor. And so if a person is, we usually coach people if there's reports of somebody harassing someone, we'll talk to them. And we actually encourage the group. We do sexual harassment kind of training in the group so that people understand it's usually miscommunication.
And if the victim can communicate more strongly, hey, I don't like this, I don't appreciate this behavior. That's the best way to stop harassment, is the person who's being harassed stopping it. But there are cases where you need others, and I don't know. So I don't know. Is it just like the church? No, it's not.
All communities need boundaries, and it's just a matter of the values of the group, and you have to enforce the boundaries or you don't have a group that's healthy. That's just reality.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I put that under the label of consistency. That's kind of, the group is a safe place and consistently safe.
If the group is threatened,
yeah,
that's when you step up and say, I'm going to protect the group. So.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Okay, we're getting pretty close to the end. So agility and flexibility, any vibrant organization has to have that these days. If you're a business on the internet or what have you, you have to kind of remain vibrant. And part of being vibrant is being flexible and agile. And there, as I indicated already, needs flash up, and you need to be able to get in and deal with them as they occur quickly, not let things fester. The other part of agility is not just in kind of mitigating bad behavior, but also being agile in terms of meeting the needs of the group. We don't frown upon at all people coming up with a new idea. And it's like people are constantly doing these ad hoc, hey, anybody want to go watch the roller derby? Right? And so we started doing roller derby events. It was kind of fun. We went and watched roller derby, a set of us did.
One of our guys, Doug, liked to bowl. So he started bowling events. So
and he wondered if he could do that on Sundays because it might compete with our coffee meetup. And he doesn't like, I don't speak too much for him. But he's an older gentleman, and it's hard for him to hear when we're in the coffee pod. And he goes, I love all the people, but I can't hear anybody. So I just want to go bowling. Does anybody want to go bowling?
There was a time when a lot of people were very protective that it was only done in the coffee pod. And my vision is that there would be so many people that we need every coffee shop opening up to people, because you can't fit 100 people in a coffee shop. Everybody has to have little coffee shops in their neighborhood where they can go.
Yep. And that's happening now. There are coffee meetups in Saratoga Springs. There's one in Springville. There's one in Draper. So they're happening all over the place. So you don't have to drive that far to get to kind of a coffee. Facilities, I mentioned already. All events need a place if it's an event. And so you need a place that has sufficient capacity for whatever the event is. And so it kind of depends on what the event is. When we invited a guy named John DeLynn down to speak, we had to make sure, Brooke got a big room reserved, and we had 235 people in the room, and couldn't have done that at our house.
We were lucky to be able to do it at Utah Valley.
Yeah. Brooke has been wonderful, and Utah Valley's been really, really good and accommodating. And again, it's grooming relationships with those kinds of owners of businesses and owners of facilities. People open their homes. I've mentioned that already, but some people have townhome kind of community centers, right, where you can go, you can reserve it, and we've done things like that. Libraries, classrooms, as I've indicated, businesses, restaurants, churches even. The South Utah County Universal Unitarians, they've allowed, we started to kick up an idea of a choir, Utah Valley Post-Mormon choir, and it didn't quite get off the ground, but one of the things we needed was a place with piano and room for people to gather together to do a choir. And the UU folks, we have some people go to UU in Utah Valley Post-Mormons, and they talked to their leadership, and they said, not a problem, come on in. And you've done meetings up at the Community of Christ Center in Salt Lake City, which has just been fabulous. I love the synergy, especially with Community of Christ and UU. It's just been so wonderful. There are maybe other facility needs like chairs, tables. Chris and I have invested. We have 30 chairs at this point, and a bunch of tables, and sometimes you need audiovisual systems, PA systems, depending on the event, and so getting a sense for who in the group has what, and if they're really willing to loan their house or their equipment or what have you, getting a sense of that, I think, is a really smart thing for people to do, to have really quality events. As groups grow, these needs expand. We gave the story already about how Calm used to be in our house, and then it overflowed to our backyard, and then it's like we're out of room, and then we turned to UVU, and thank goodness Brooke was able to arrange that.
Brooke is great.
Brooke is really great. The outreach, and Brooke is so well known. I mean, she's the person who knows how to connect people to the right Facebook groups wherever. She's a member of many of them. I go to her all the time. Outreach and awareness. If you're a secret group, especially, how do people find you, right? And so the Mormon Spectrum Map, which we'll talk about later, is really a good mechanism. And we've had a lot of success. A lot of people have found us, the Utah Valley Post-Mormon group, through the Mormon Spectrum Map. Word of mouth is probably the best thing. People who are in the group who like it, who know of people in their lives that are either out or struggling, who are kind of missing community, they say, "Man, come over, you got to check this thing out," and they bring people. And then when your own people are in other online forums, sometimes you'll come across somebody telling some thread on one of the Facebook groups, and someone will say, "Man, I'm in Bakersfield. I wish I knew more people in Bakersfield that are like out and would understand me." And it's like, it's so good to be able to give them a link to the Mormon Spectrum Map and say, "There's a group in Sacramento," or whatever, something that's close, and you can point people to them. But being on the lookout and having people kind of spread the word of in-person communities is good. How many events should you have? There's kind of a Goldilocks principle here. If you have too many events, people can feel they're getting spammed, right? It's like, gosh, this is worse than the church. It's running me ragged. If I were to go to every one of these events, it's like, gosh, I'm spending more time outside of my home than I ever did when I was in the church. So we kind of err on the side of, actually, we have too many events probably, but we try to give a variety of events so people can pick and choose which ones fit. And if you have too few events, then people get lonely. Even with the amount of events that we have in Utah Valley Post-Mormon, there are people who get online and go, "I'm really alone. Does anybody else want to go do something?" Right? And so they just do those ad hoc events. So you should kind of, your group and kind of stay in touch with them to kind of what frequency of events and if you got the right variety. So to the set of events that we have on a weekly basis, Utah Valley has the weekly coffee meetup on Sundays. We meet from 11:30 to about 2:30.
A lot of times they go out to dinner after that. Yeah,
there's a group that says, "Hey, let's go to a restaurant and go grab a bite to eat." But that, we have a lot of people that come meet the group. That's their first experience with the group is a coffee pod. We started last year weekly midweek lunches that rotate through 4 cities in Utah County: Springville, Orem, American Fork, and Lehigh. So during your lunch break, if you don't get a chance to get away on a weekend, but you still want to go meet some people in the group, you can make friends going to the midweek lunches. Bi-weekly karaoke at the Madison. That's another case where we've developed a good relationship. We have one of our admins, Sarah, is the person who's kind of groomed that relationship. And it's great because not only do we do karaoke, but we do 2 big annual events. We have our anniversary event, the anniversary of the Utah Valley Post-Mormons. We'll have our 4th anniversary coming up in March.
You'll have to come.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Fun.
And we do kind of a winter solstice / Christmas kind of thing. And we do that all at the Madison because we forged this relationship with them. The Madison is kind of a dance club for those that don't know, in Provo. We do a monthly book club, monthly game night. We've been a little lax in that. That's kind of board games. Girls' Night Out is one of these organic things that has been happening a lot lately. We do, in the summer, barbecues, picnics. We go camping. We do hiking events, outdoor events. We do service projects. There's an idea of if somebody wants to go feed the poor, right? And so we're putting something together for this weekend. Brand new idea that somebody wants to do. And Ron and Jill have done this up in Salt Lake a few times. Fantastic people. People have a desire to give back, right? They don't pay tithing anymore. They want to go help people, and it's just wonderful. You feel good as a community when you do that kind of thing. Educational events, right? We had a thing called Utah Valley Classes that where people would tell how they do financing in their family, just the family financing. Somebody did who did a Ice Age 101. It was a kind of education about the Ice Age.
It was nice for kids.
Yeah, and the kids came, and it was great. And he brought,
all kinds of stuff.
All kinds of things, dinosaur bones, all that kind of stuff. And I mentioned that we piggybacked on some of the kind of lecture series. We brought you to Utah Valley, but we've had like Grant Palmer up in Salt Lake. Really cool, great events that get tape recorded and posted. And I already covered annual events. We do Easter egg hunt and pumpkin carving. So we do some things for kids as well, right? And then we've done a few big events. So last year, was it last year? Yeah, last year we rented a bus and went to Vegas and went and saw the Book of Mormon musical. We had 70 post-Mormons piped in from Utah Valley and Salt Lake Valley in Vegas and saw Book of Mormon musical.
How fun.
It was a blast. It was really a blast. Allison and Jordan came. They were kind of our guests invited from Bozeman. And we're doing a Utah Valley post-Mormon cruise in May. So, it's just a blast. As I mentioned, a variety of events is good. There are some people who are party animals and just can't get enough. And there are others who are kind of introverts and maybe want something a little more cerebral. Or something where they feel like it's something constructive, right? And you're not going to satisfy everyone, but putting things out there that can kind of tickle somebody's fancy. And don't worry if not every event has the capacity that, people RSVP a lot and then sometimes they don't come, or sometimes people don't RSVP and then they show up. But if you're an admin, sometimes our admins have kind of gone, why am I doing this? I put together this event and nobody came. And you need to kind of keep your chin up and keep doing events. People eventually do come. It's just like the beginning of Salt Lake Postmos, 3 people at coffee.
I think it's important also to bring up that Tom Perry is trying to do the mixed faith marriage. Perfect.
It is something we're going to cover later. But Tom Perry from Infants on Thrones, he lives in Utah Valley, and he's comes from a mixed faith marriage. He's starting to do podcasts on Infants on Thrones on the mixed faith marriage topic, and he wanted to couple that with in-person events. And so he had his first kind of support meeting for mixed faith marriages. And that was just held this last month. I was in China. I wasn't able to go.
I wanted to go, and I signed up for it and forgot.
Yep. I've already kind of covered the network effect. We think that even more people are going to keep coming out, but a group can get too big as well and unruly. In some ways, Utah Valley Post-Mormons is kind of in that space. We're over, my guess is about 1,400 people. And so having kind of smaller, like different coffee in different parts of Utah Valley, not just one big coffee meetup, but multiple coffee meetups, or even forming new groups is good, right? Like teens, like having a teen group. That's their own group that still are a part of the bigger group, right? So you still get the big events and you still have that camaraderie online, but maybe you form your own age-specific group. There's somebody who just started a over 40 ex-Mormon group in Orem, right in the middle of where we are in Utah Valley, and I embrace it with open arms. He felt like he really, the younger set, it wasn't for him, and he needed to kind of have people who are closer to him in age. And I go, this is great. you know, if you want to cross post some of your events, let me know, kind of thing. And just to be really open minded about it is good, and not get protective. There were times when Utah Valley Post Mormons, there was a group called the Utah Valley Misfits, and so some of the admins were going, they're scheduling events right when we have our events. And from my perspective, it was like, that's okay. So what? People have choice. They get to go wherever they want to go.
So don't be possessive.
Yeah, don't be possessive. It is something worthwhile that you're building, but it's other people can build very worthwhile things too. And it all serves a need. I mentioned already we do regional events. We still kind of covered that. And I think I kind of covered most of those things. We can move on to 10 in the outline.
Okay, great. So you have sort of a potpourri of other concerns.
Yeah, and some of this came from some of the questions that people posted on your event page, on the Mormon Transitions page. So youth, what do you do with youth-specific kinds of events? We've kind of addressed this a little bit. That we have a weekly coffee in Utah Valley, but Catherine Hess has also created a youth group for Utah, and she's been doing get-togethers, kind of parties. They've gone out and done several things as the youth. And someone was wondering, how would you ever compete with what happens in young men, young women, or EFY? And it's like, well, it's a little hard to compete with some of that stuff, but getting the teenagers to find each other is really important, because they're kind of sticking out in amongst their friends. And then Zelf on a Shelf, all those young, vibrant millennials are off doing really wonderful things. I understand from your retreat, there's this idea of creating a kind of an EFY kind of event, which sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's the hope for July of 2016. Some type of EFY retreat.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And some are also wanting to organize a girls' camp. So like, sort of like 8 to 14 for kind of the girls' camp, and then a 14 to 18 for the EFY, post-Mormon EFY. So we're going to work hard to make that happen. If people are interested in that, please reach out, mormontransitions@gmail.com, or the good people of Zelf on the Shelf.
Yep. Fantastic.
That's
so
awesome.
Kid events, we've covered that.
I have a question about youth and children.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things, what time do you guys need to end this interview? Are you okay?
Yeah, we're okay.
Okay. So one of the things that the church had to learn the hard way, and the Boy Scouts had to learn the hard way, is how to prevent abuse. And I want to make sure that whatever we're creating has whatever best practices that other organizations have learned, whether it's too deep, so there's always 2 adults at every event, or background checks to make sure there's no predators. Have you guys thought at all about how to prevent child or adolescent abuse? And have you implemented any of that, or is that something we need to keep thinking about and talking about?
We haven't implemented anything like that. It's a relatively new need in the group. There have been a number of families that have come out together en masse, where the mom and dad and all the kids have come out, and so they've been good to facilitate things because it satisfies the needs of their own kids. But we haven't done that kind of vetting. I think it's a good idea to keep in mind for the future.
Okay, just wanted to know what you've done.
Cool. Opportunities for service, we've kind of covered. Someone had the idea of Adopt a Highway. I think it'd be really cool. It's like a segment of I-15 brought to you by the Utah Valley Post Mormons. I think that would be really awesome if we can get that to happen.
I'll just one of the items you have mentioned here is mixed faith couples, and one of the things I've heard from various groups is just that it's really important, as you've already mentioned, that an event be designated in terms of what's going to be going on there, and that's specifically important when we want to have events where there's people of different places in the spectrum kind of trying to bring their spouses to events. And I just think it's really important for groups to hold events that are friendly for mixed faith couples, and in those events those who are non-believers or frustrated or angry can sort of realize that we're in an event with believers. We're not going to be trashing on Joseph Smith. We're not going to be taking pot shots at the leadership. You know, we want to be aware when there are believers in the room and learn to speak really respectfully, because it's just so important for these mixed faith couples that they can bring someone to a place where they feel safe. And if that means that there are events without alcohol, events without swearing, events without trashing the church, events where people just act, optimally, respectfully, those events can really determine whether or not a group can grow in certain ways. Because if the groups are too crazy, too disrespectful, they're just going to be perceived, and even just the existence of alcohol in some of these events are enough to turn somebody off. So I think groups should regularly consider sort of G-rated events where even kids and total believers feel welcome. I don't know if you guys have experimented with that, but I can't emphasize enough how important that can be for these groups to feel safe and for mixed faith couples to be able to find community.
Yeah, Tom Perry is just starting that out in our group. So we're, watching that. It's a huge need in the group. And there's actually, people who are in the midst of mixed faith marriages, and people who have emerged either where, they both came out or they ended up divorced or what have you. But they all have gold mines to tap in terms of what worked, what didn't work. And safety is a huge thing there. I think you're completely right. I'm really glad that Tom is stepping up to help out with this.
I want to support him. Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Yep. So the rest of it is kind of a mix of some of the questions. I think we've covered a lot of them already that came in. One thing that each group needs to kind of look at is what's your group's primary role? Is it a support group? Is it a social group? Is it both? Because that'll make a big difference in what you're doing. If you're just a social group, maybe you don't really have as many sensitivities. Maybe you kind of say, we don't even want people who are just fresh out. We want people who are already out, and we have this same background, but we like to go party or whatever. And so people could create their own group. That's what they do. We have a mix. We have kind of a support function as well as a social function. And let me see. Oh, there are people who get burned out hearing kind of the transition stories. It's like they'll tell me, if I hear another how I lost my faith story, I'm gonna kill myself. And it's like, you can get burned out, and it's like, okay, good. Don't go to things where that occurs as much. Whereas there are other people who are really drawn to be there for others, who are very empathic, and that all sorts itself out. People kind of migrate according to the events and stuff. Someone brought up, is it really healthy to kind of assemble as post-Mormons? You were Mormons and now you're assembling as post-Mormons. It still seems like your identity is around Mormon something. You put a prefix in front of it. And so people want to become post-Mormons. They want to graduate and get on to life beyond Mormonism. And I totally get that and agree with it. I'm beyond Mormonism. I am. But I'm here in a capacity to kind of help people who are still in and coming out. That's something that turns me on. Just turns me on. It doesn't have to turn everyone else on. And so yeah, more power to it. Yeah, graduate, go out, do great things in life. In Utah Valley, it's a little harder to just kind of put it behind you. If I lived in New Jersey, I could just go fold into society. Maybe have my own book clubs or whatever, but I don't have to be post-Mormon anymore. I can just be a citizen in New Jersey. Then I think there's also a spectrum of types of groups that can be around. There's the support group kind of that deals with transitioning people, and these can be very transient. People will come into the group. It served its purpose. It got them on their feet, and they really don't have a need for it anymore. So they just find some friends and they go off and do other things, and we don't see them again. And I think that's fine. Some of them just kind of eventually leave the group. Some of them linger in the Facebook group. And then maybe they get tired of it and just say, I'm closing shop. I don't want to see this on my newsfeed anymore. And they leave. But our net is still an increase on a weekly basis. Long-term communities are a whole different cup of soup to me. That's something that is more akin to kind of what you're looking to do with the Community of Good, John, the UU Church, Community of Christ, Sunday Assembly. These are all kind of congregational in nature, and really a group of, what's the number that JD always brings up?
Dunbar.
Dunbar's number?
Yeah, Dunbar's number, where you actually, it's like you're going to grow old with these people, and you're going to, you know their kids, and your kids have played with their kids, and you've raised each other, and I think that's actually a really cool thing. That's probably not what Utah Valley Post-Mormons is, but something like that could maybe emerge in Utah Valley that has a little more structure to it, a little more sense of, singing and having devotional talks and things like that. So you need to kind of look at what kind of group you're trying to be. And then, of course, it depends on your region where you live, of what's going to be sustained and what won't.
And we'll have a whole series of episodes on those types of congregational communities. So look forward to that, listeners.
Cool. I think there's just one other thing I touched on BYU and kind of events that deal with education and growth. We've talked about the idea of maybe doing TED Talk events is an idea that's been kicked around. It's like, go listen to a TED Talk, watch it, and then discuss it after as a group. That'd be kind of cool. Money enters in sometimes when you need an event needs, we have to pay rental fees for the facility or what have you. And so sometimes you have to bring in money. And the tip I want to pass along there is that we recommend getting money up front. If people are going to go to an event, make sure you're getting your money for the event up front. And so like a PayPal account or something like that really helps out for that kind of thing. And then as far as how to start a group, that was one of the questions that was asked. It's like, well, we've already mentioned it's really, really easy on Facebook and Meetup. But Mormon Spectrum has a frequently asked questions section. And one of the things it talks about is how do you start these things? And there is a set of best practices there about kind of what suggested kind of guidelines you could start with, just templates that you can kind of talk about. And then this gets to Mormon Spectrum. One of the designs of Mormon Spectrum is that we gather all of the admins for these 140 groups, and there's one or two reps for each of the in-person groups, and they're all in a Facebook group. And so they talk to each other on a daily basis, like, hey, I'm trying to do this. This doesn't work. What do you guys think? What should I do? That kind of thing.
Or, hey, there's a predator that's going from community to community. Watch out for this predator, right?
Yeah, drama.
No, I mean, but mostly it's just people sharing best practices and tips and tricks. It's a great little community.
Yeah, it really is. Really is. So I think that's it from our end, John. Again, I want to thank you for giving this much kind of exposure to the need for communities. I think is really, really important in people's life journey. So I'm pleased to be part of it. I really am. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I just want to thank you guys. And why don't we just end with, I mean, you spoke to this all along, but again, you guys have dedicated a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money. And there's a lot of people out there that are maybe just thinking too much work, too much effort. But maybe they're interested. And if you guys had to close with sort of what it's meant to you to be a part of this, how would you end to just sort of say, hey, if you're at all inclined, give this thing a try because it actually can pay you back in good ways? What would you guys say?
You can never have too many friends.
And it's like pay it forward for me. I love what this community did for me, even if it was 20 years after I left. But it has its own rewards. To see people coming out of the church frightened, afraid, and not knowing really who they are anymore, to have kind of a foundation, a network of safety, where they can actually feel welcomed and actually start trusting other people, coming from where they really are purely coming from. And then they can kind of put their lives back together and figure out how they want to spend the rest of their life. And no better way to do that than in a community. I think people make the mistake often of saying when they feel alone, everyone feels alone. And that's what makes you actually not alone. If we all have that in common. So get together, do it with others. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to do.
Excellent. All right. So if people want to join the Utah Valley Post-Mormon community, where do they go?
So you go to either the Mormon Spectrum map and or to our meetup.com group, and you can join the meetup.com group. You can also send me a Facebook message. I've got my name on the Mormon Spectrum map as a contact point. So
mormonspectrum.org is the best place to find your group?
Yeah, mormonspectrum.org, or go to meetup.com and search for Utah Valley Post-Mormons.
Okay, and that's the way to join?
Yeah, that's the way to join.
And like Joseph Smith, do you guys have a vision or a dream for what the community, Mormon, the post and transitioning Mormon communities will be in 10 to 20 years? Do you have a vision, kind of like a Martin Luther King, I have a dream speech? What do you see in the future that you want to call people to help make happen?
Hopefully you don't need this kind of support, because people will just start accepting each other wherever they are in their journeys. That would be my dream.
That's good. Yeah. All right, Steve, what do you want to add?
Yeah, you don't need to transition from anything, right? If that thing wasn't around anymore. No, I won't say that, but I think it's important that my vision is that people that are in the church actually no longer fear people who are outside of the church. That these communities are vibrant enough and up to good things, and that's very clear that they're up to good things, that we're up to good things, so that the stigma of kind of the ex-Mormon dark, loathsome goes away.
And we become just people who are living healthy, happy lives, and our lights are shining so bright that maybe even people are intrigued by what we have to offer. They look at us and say, you've got that special smile. You've got that spark in your eye. What is it about you? And you say, what do you say? Well, I'm a post-Mormon. Would you like to learn more?
Yeah, exactly. Or give them a pair of sunglasses. If it's too bright, here, put these on.
It's a good dream. I like it.
Yep.
All right. Well, Chris and Steve Holbrook, thanks for joining us both on Mormon Stories and Mormon Transitions. You guys are heroes of mine, even though you don't like me to say it. And you're dear friends. And I look forward to decades ahead of collaboration.
So do Definitely. I. 3 cheers for that.
All right. We'll see you guys soon. And listeners, thanks for joining us on Mormon Transitions and Mormon Stories. Thanks for all those who support us financially. You make this stuff possible. Please go up to either of these websites and post comments. Hopefully Steve and Chris will be able to join in and provide answers. Look for future episodes on this topic. And if you have feedback or suggestions or tips or tricks, please post them there. And we'll be creating, hopefully, this cookbook of community creation and growth. And we'll share that out so that in addition to listening to stuff, you guys can have sort of a manual for creating this stuff yourselves. And hopefully in 5 years, we'll have, 20 or 100 groups as strong as Utah Valley Post-Mormon.
That would be wonderful. It'd be great. It's needed.
All right, everyone. Thanks, Steve and Chris. And thanks, listeners. We'll talk to you all again soon.
Take care.
Thanks, John. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today on Mormon Transitions Podcast. To support the podcast and to join the Mormon Transitions support community on Facebook, become a monthly donor today at mormontransitions.org. To comment on this episode, please visit the blog post for this episode at mormontransitions.org. And thanks for listening.
Pay attention to the priest. the holy word and consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything, everything, everything is holy now. And when I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, and Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad, miracles don't happen still, but now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything, everything, everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. Holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips, but now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Child's face, say it's not a testament, that'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament, I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush and singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy.